Hey, what's up, guys? This is Joe from Analog Archive, back with another vinyl video. Today's video is going to be another contribution to the Blue Note 1500 series project. Today's album is going to be 1584. Here Comes Lewis Smith by Lewis Smith. This has Lewis Smith on trumpet, Buckshot LaFunk on alto sax, which I'll get to in just a second. Duke Jordan and Tommy Flanagan share the duties on piano, Doug Watkins on bass, and then Art Taylor is on the drums. This was recorded over two dates, February 4th and 9th, 1958. So three of the tracks have Duke Jordan on it, which I believe was the earlier set of, was like the February 4th recording session. And then the remaining three was Tommy Flanagan, the February 9th session. Interesting things about this album. First thing is that this was actually originally recorded to be put out on the Transition label. So Transition label, for those that maybe are not familiar, was a very small record label in the later 50s. They did not have a huge output. I'm not terribly familiar with Transition itself in terms of how many records they had, but it was a very short-lived label in the mid to late 50s. One thing that was interesting about the Transition label was the fact that all of the records were pressed on like styrene, so it's very difficult nowadays to find, if you find original pressings, for them to be in kind of good condition or playable condition, not only just because of the age, but also because styrene really, for especially those that collect 7-inches from the 70s and 80s, a lot of those were made from styrene. Kind of know that the more that you play them, the more that they wear quite a bit, and it's a lot quicker than the polyvinyl chloride that most records themselves are made of. So those pressings, the styrene pressings, may have been one of the reasons. I don't think that was why. I think it was just so many labels at the time. It was hard for labels to kind of stay afloat. So actually, within the time of when this was recorded, in early February to when it was released in either March or April of 58, Transition actually went under, and the masters were given to Alfred Lion, or sold to Alfred Lion, who then gave them to Rudy Van Gelder, who remastered, or kind of, if you want to say remastered, or just really just mastered the record and put that out by the time it actually came out itself. Something else interesting at the beginning with Buckshot LaFunk on alto sax, that was a pseudonym of Cannibal Adderley. More than likely, I don't know if it was just like a joke or if he was recording for a different label at the time, and so for him to kind of get, especially on the front cover, he kind of came up with his own kind of name, and so yeah, Buckshot LaFunk was the pseudonym for Cannibal Adderley. To get to the tracks themselves, there are 6 tracks. Again, three tracks were from one session, the other 3 were from the other, and the only difference is who's playing the piano. The rest of them, both horns, and then Doug Watkins and Art Taylor on the drums stayed for both sessions. So the first track is called Tribute to Brownie. That was a Duke Pearson original. So even though he doesn't feature on it, he was, that was the first track that was chosen. This is a real fast-moving, kind of swinging track to it. Cannibal Adderley starts out with his solo. It sounds really great, real fast-moving, a lot of energy and drive to it. Lewis Smith then comes in afterwards, and again, just a really quick succession of notes. Something that was really interesting about Lewis Smith, he always really pushed the tempo. He didn't really have a lot of albums. He has one other album after this. It's called Smithville, which I think is actually somewhere in the 1590s. It was recorded only a month after this, and so he obviously was really well liked at Blue Note. He also features on Blue Lights, which is another, it's a Kenny Burrell record, 1595 and 96, because it was a 2-part one that I'll be showing probably the next few weeks. But didn't really have a lot of albums himself, but really had a great kind of set of albums when it was there. So just really fast moving again with him, and just that first song itself. The second track is called Vals Blues. This is a Lewis Smith original. This is a little bit slower tempo than the first track, but both Lewis Smith and Cannonball Adderley still are pushing the tempo, really fast solos to it. And again, just their ability to be able to improvise so well was very impressive. And Duke Jordan has a great solo on that, really pushing the tempo as well, and really emphasizing those chords that he's playing with his left hand. So just really great solo overall, and real quick approach to it. You then get to the final song on the A side, which is called Andy. So it's A-N-D-E. This is another Lewis Smith original, and this has a very fast tempo. Right out the gate, it's just very fast moving. Could barely kind of even catch your breath. A lot of energy by Lewis Smith. He's the first one to kind of solo on that, and then Cannonball Adderley comes in and just has this incredible solo, and it's just very impressive by the horn section. Really on all the tracks, it's tough to pick an original, or not an original, a favorite, along with just being able to kind of hear just the emotion, the energy by these players is incredible. Great sound on that as well. And then Art Taylor does have a little bit of a drum solo at the end as well. Nice to kind of have that kind of added in. So that was nice kind of end to the side itself. You then get to the B side. The first track is called Stardust. And actually, the other thing with the last track, Andy, that had Tommy Flanagan on the piano instead of Duke Jordan. So the first two tracks had Duke Jordan, and then this third track had Tommy Flanagan, along with this opening track on the B side, which is called Stardust. This is the only track that's kind of like a standard. I can't really say that it's the only one that's not written by anybody on the album, because the opening track is a Duke Pearson one, but this is the only standard on it, and it's also the only ballad on it. Does not have Cannonball Adderley on it. It's the only track that doesn't have him on it. And actually Lewis Smith is the only one to solo as well. So it's a nice way to kind of start the side. Very melodic, very kind of emotional solo by Lewis Smith, and a great way to start the side. You then get to the second track that's called South Side, and this is another Lewis Smith original. Very fast tempo to this one, really great sound to it. Especially in particular, this was my favorite Cannonball Adderley solo. Just really a lot of emotion to it, a lot of energy, and just his ability to be able to move from bar to bar was very impressive. And actually, Lewis Smith starts out the solos right from the beginning, and that's great. But then it gets into Cannonball Adderley, and he starts his solo with this really long succession of probably maybe 7, 8, maybe even 10 measures of just this long string of notes, and it's really great. It's almost like he didn't breathe the entire time, so it's really great to hear that. Really impressive work on that. And I talked about Cannonball Adderley on other albums, and that I really like his early stuff. I mean, Something Else is an amazing album that's coming up in the 1500 series soon, but I've always really been impressed with his 50s work. Just a much different sound than as you got closer into the 60s. A lot of the albums with his brother, Nat Adderley, just seem to be missing something to it. It doesn't really have that same edge that he has on these early Blue Note albums. So just especially that track is a great one. And then you get to the final track, which is called Vals Blues. This is a Lewis Smith original as well. And this something interesting about this one was that it starts with a very short intro, and for those that really have enjoyed or really enjoy hard bop, know that a lot of these tracks start with a 45-second to like 1 minute intro to kind of get to set the mood, set the melody. But this is just, it's like a few bars and then the solos start. Lewis Smith starts the solos. I'm sorry, not Lewis. Campbell Adderley starts the solos, takes a few bars, and then Lewis Smith comes right in. There's not really much of a break. It's almost just like all of a sudden, Lewis Smith is just playing. He takes a longer solo, and then Tommy Flanagan comes in. Really great solo by him. Of all the tracks on the album, I think he sounds the best on that one, and just really, really impressive work. Love to see Tommy Flanagan on it. I don't really pick out piano players all the time, but when you're comparing, kind of listening to Duke Jordan versus Tommy Flanagan, you can hear that difference in sound. I really like that approach that Tommy Flanagan has to it, and it's just a great solo. Doug, and then as the track kind of gets towards the end, there's this really nice back and forth between Tommy Flanagan and Doug Watkins. Just this really bluesy, very groovy sound to it, back and forth between them. It seems like they kind of take the volume down a little bit and then slowly kind of transitions into Doug Watkins' solo. He takes a little, kind of a little bit of time, and then the track closes with Art Taylor, kind of with a drum solo along with Louis Smith. And that's something that I've heard a lot on quite a few of these albums, that especially the closing track will have this back and forth between the leader and the person that's playing the drums. And so that's kind of what you hear. You hear Louis Smith take a bar or two, and then Art Taylor does kind of the fills on the drums, and then it goes back to Louis Smith, takes a bar or two, and then Art Taylor has the drums, plays a few bars, and then the track comes to a close very quickly. And that's kind of the kind of final note on that. That is something else that I noticed on quite a few of the tracks, especially in the A side, where it just it seems like the last person solos, and then there's like maybe 1 or 2 bars, and then the song is over. There's not always a coming back of that melody like you hear at the beginning. You don't really hear that at the end. It just seems like with quite a few of them, they just end. So overall, this is an incredible album. I actually just recently got this in the mail. I got this on a Discogs auction just actually last week. For those that are on Instagram, Uncle Charlie's Jazz Records, who's headed by Jason Parker. He does weekly jazz auctions. This one was up for sale last week. I've always been looking for Lewis Smith stuff. I really enjoy his work. This is the UA Mono from the early 70s. I've talked about this. I actually made a video a few months ago about these United Artists Mono. I know that they can be difficult to find, but are worth seeking out. They're the best alternatives to originals. Aside from, if you can find newer pressings, classic records, there's probably a classic records pressing of this from the 2000s. I'm not positive. I don't know if this has Music Matters pressing or not, or if there's any other pressings, but this is a great pressing. Worth seeking out if you find great sound to it. Mono format. Lewis Smith is someone that's not really a household name, but once you hear his albums, this one again, Here Comes Lewis Smith, and then his follow-up, Smithville, you're going to get hooked. He's just an incredible player. He's kind of like a Tina Brooks, where he didn't really have a lot of recordings, not a terribly well-known person, but when he is featured, he stands out. This is an incredible one and worth, again, finding. So this is Blue Note 1584. That's going to be it for this video. So if you enjoyed this, please think about liking and subscribing, and I will see you in the next vinyl video. Bye.